So now we continue on Pakmodrupa's text here, on karmic causality and the vows of individual liberation. So to compare with his teacher, Gampopa's Jewel Ornament of Liberation, a much larger and more detailed text, this next section on explaining the vows of individual liberation with the details that is in here. Interestingly, it's not included in Gampopa's Jewel Ornament of Liberation. Gampopa's Jewel Ornament of Liberation does not have an explicit section on taking the individual liberation vows. It has the taking of the refuge, how to take refuge and all of that. And then it also has the how to take the Bodhisattva vow in the Jewel Ornament of Liberation. Of course, the Jewel Ornament of Liberation mentions the taking of individual liberation. Then it's basically saying you should consult other sources for doing that. But here in Pakmodrupa's text, under the discussion of karmic causality, he then moves into a brief discussion of the vows of individual liberation. So here it says, to maintain both the abandonment of previously committed non-virtues and to restrain henceforth from committing them again, there is then the teaching of take a vow of individual liberation, do this. So this in quotes, if you have the text, I think Omar was sharing kind of snapshots of this. So if Omar, you can share it again in the Zoom chat. So this in quotation, take a vow of individual liberation, the practice of this. This is Pakmodrupa quoting the root text that he wrote. The root text also, if you still have that, Omar, you can share that too. Root text is very short, actually, the verses in the root text. And then Pakmodrupa writes this brief commentary of his own root text. So this one line, and then he elaborates. He says, so as for this, there are 8 topics. So this is the style of Tibetan writing. They like to kind of organize, things into these topics. So there are 8 topics. First, the essence of the individual liberation vows, the classifications, meaning what are the different types. So the essence is like, what is the core? And then this core, how does it translate to different contexts, different people? There are classifications. From whom a vow is taken, who do you take this vow from? The ceremony for taking such a vow, the beneficial effects, what are the precepts, the specific trainings, and the occasions of obtaining and losing the vow, and the methods of restoring the vow if it is damaged. So these are the 8 topics. So first, the essence. So here, Pakmodrupa says, the hearers accept that the vows are substantive. So here, in the so-called hearer vehicles, the Shravaka tradition. Sometimes we call that the lesser vehicle or the individual vehicle. There are differences of opinion with regards to the essence of these individual liberation vows. Admittedly, I think for most of us, the differences being made and argued for and debated, it's a little too, as we would say, esoteric. It's a little too detailed, I think for most of us to appreciate or to know what to do with. So I will be honest to say that. But of course, I should also say, but then it's good to be challenged. Not just for our own sake, so that if the occasion arises, we might be able to use that knowledge in a beneficial way to others, It can help illuminate. But I also don't want you to feel that you have to know all of it, memorize all of it, otherwise you are not a good Dharma practitioner. It's not like that. So anyway, there are different two opinions, which Pakmodrupa actually gives both here, without saying, without him committing to this is right and this is wrong. He states both positions. The second position starts from that part that says the others in common accept that the vows, that's the second opinion. And here the others, he means not just the Shravaka vehicle, but also those who belong to the Bodhisattva vehicle, meaning he is referring to those who follow Mahayana Buddhism. They generally accept this second position. So the first position generally accepted by, held by those who follow the lesser vehicle. Now let's look at the first one first. The hearers accept that the vows are substantive. Our footnote here tells us that this is the Vaibhashika position, that the vows are imperceptible form. And if they are a form, if they are a type of form, or if they have a form, then they are substantive. They are substantive. They are something, there is a substance to them. And so in a different context, they are actually called imperceptible form. Now, next Pakmodrupa will unpack imperceptible form, even though he doesn't use that vocabulary in his, he calls substantive. But our translator kindly provided, like, what does this mean? This is a reference to imperceptible form. There is a form, but cannot be seen by the fleshy eye. Cannot be seen by your eyes and my eyes. Now, that this vow form's cause is generated by the perceptible aspects of the vow ceremony. What is this talking about? It's saying why they say this is a type of form. Why these vows actually have a form? Because they arise from the physical actions and verbal actions that are carried out during the vow giving ceremony. And what arises from form necessarily is form. I don't need you to accept this logic, but it helps for you to see this logic. And so they say, from the and then why is now so the ceremony is perceptible. You can see, oh, this person has said this person has done this, and therefore this person has received the vows. In that sense, those vows are a type of form because they arise from form. That its essence is imperceptible form that is unrevealed and non-impeding. However, although they are form, they have substance, they are imperceptible. Because like nobody actually, like you don't have this, put in the hands of the person. Okay, now these are your vows, so they are imperceptible. Unrevealed is emphasizing the imperceptible side of things. Non-impeding is emphasizing how it is different from normal form. Normal form, meaning normal material substance, has an impeding quality. Meaning when this thing is here, something else cannot be there. It has that impeding quality. And that its abandonments are the 4 defeats, or the 7 speech and body non-virtues. The 4 defeats are referring to the 4 most serious monastic vows. The monastic vows for monks, for example, there are over 200. In Theravada, 227. In the Tibetan tradition, 250. Chinese, 252. So 200 plus. But how serious they are is not the same. It's not like they have the same level of like consequence. The consequence is not uniform. Of these 200 plus, divided into sections, 4 are more serious. And if you break any of those 4, you are defeated. That's why they're called the 4 defeats. Or the 7 speech and body non-virtues. Now here is referring to the 10 non-virtues, which we already looked at. So you have abandoned, meaning you have lost these vows if you commit for our purposes. We don't need to look at the 4 defeats, not relevant to us. We look at the 7 speech and body non-virtues. 3 of the body, right? Killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. 4 of speech. Deceptive speech. Destructive speech. Divisive speech. Distracted speech. 4. Along with the specific precepts. Yesterday I mentioned, interestingly, there are 10 non-virtues, but 5 precepts that we take. Because those 5 precepts, they guard against speech and words in particular. Speech and actions. They don't directly emphasize the 3rd, right? Mind. But of course, elsewhere we know it's the mind that helps us guard against physical and verbal non-virtues. Then along with the specific precepts. Now here is referring to those 5 precepts. The 5 precepts. The others, meaning now, okay, so that's one position. The other position, in common, as in they all, except that the vows are the, what are the vows? What are the vows? They are the opposite of both harming sentient beings, the 7 speech and body non-virtues, and so this is the first. When it says both, what are the both? Harming sentient beings through the 7 speech and body non-virtues. Yeah, so maybe not a comma there, but harming sentient beings through the 7 speech and body non-virtues, and of that which functions as a basis for that harm, meaning the 3 non-virtues of the mind. So here, my guess is Pakmodrupa is saying these both definitions are useful to us. The second definition emphasizes that the essence of the vows is on the external. It's the guard against, through the 5 precepts, the guard against the 7 non-virtues of body and speech. And the most immediate impact of non-virtues of body and speech is causing harm to others. Right? When you kill, you're killing mostly others. When you steal, you're stealing from others. When you commit sexual misconduct, you have violated someone else. Then the 4 types of non-virtuous speech is acted upon others. So the vows of individual liberation, the essence of that is to restrain yourself from causing harm to others. And then part of that essence of that vow is the 3 non-virtues of the mind: covetousness, ill will, and mistaken views. That's the inner aspect of the individual liberation vows. And together these are the essence. Now, what about this discussion about, and what's the point of the imperceptible form? So this is kind of interesting. Those of you who have studied Gongchik, you might remember there is a Vajra statement that says, the essence of the vows are imperceptible form. And Jigten Sumgun said this. And it's like, wait, this is kind of interesting. And even like kind of shocking, right? Because that understanding of what the essence of the vows are in the Tibetan kind of universe, in the late Indian Buddhist universe, is often said to be a lower view, because they belong to the Shravakas. They belong to the Hinayana. We are Mahayana people, or even more mighty, we are Mahamudra people, or even more mighty, we are great perfection Dzogchen people, the vehicle of no cause and no effect, things like that. How come this great master that you guys say is an actual Buddha, Jigten Sumgun, how can he, advocate this low view? that the essence of the vows, is imperceptible form. Why? Why does he say that? You can almost imagine, when Jigten Sumgön said that, he was being provocative, Now, often, right, these Vajra statements I've said when we're studying Gongchik, you have to remember that they weren't composed as a single text. These are kind of like provocative, evocative statements that he made, that kind of like caught, Sherab Jungle's attention. Wow, that's unusual, unique, unusual, potentially controversial. So for him to say, the essence of the vows are imperceptible form. Very interesting. Now, one of Kyopa Rinpoche's junior contemporaries, like one generation after him, never met him probably, but definitely were friends with Sherab Jungle, is the great scholar master Sakya Pandita. Interestingly, Sakya Pandita, who is often, in Sakya Pandita's famous composition called Clear Differentiation of the Three Vows, in his Domsum Rapkye, he often debates, or wants to debate. Debate would assume two sides, He wants to debate, many of the Vajra statements that Jigten Sumgön made. So he criticized. He tries to, show that these statements are mistaken. Interestingly, Sakya Pandita also says the essence of the vows are imperceptible form. But then the more interesting conclusion or take-home lesson is, although Kyopa Rinpoche says it's imperceptible form, although Sakya Pandita said it's imperceptible form, they draw different conclusions from it. And they arrive at that position for different reasons. For Sakya Pandita, which I cannot speak too much about, I barely know, his system. But learning from the big volume and Professor Zobich's, production of this big volume, and hopefully not misrepresenting Professor Zobich, Sakya Pandita's saying that the essence of the vows are imperceptible form. What the main conclusion he draws from that is, at the time of death, just like this form breaks apart, falls apart, definition of death, then the vows that are imperceptible form carried by this body also falls apart. So at death, you no longer have that vow. At death. He has his reasons. He has his reasons. So we need not go into that. And I'm not qualified to present his reasons. Just as a point of contrast, to show you how, an example of how two great masters could accept the same point, but come up with different take-home lessons, different conclusions. Jigten Sumgön, this part I can say a little bit more, maybe not much more illuminating, but Jigten Sumgön's acceptance of how individual liberation vows, the essence of these vows are a type of imperceptible form. His take-home lesson is this. There are 2 points, I think, in his take-home lesson. or 2 points that we can take home and use as lessons for our own good, our own benefit. One is, elsewhere in the Gongchik, he has a statement that says, what we call, I will paraphrase the Vajra statement, because the Vajra statement is very concise. To paraphrase that Vajra statement, he says, what you and I think of as like reality or the present, like this moment, this present moment, this reality, right? So not in the abstract, but like this reality, as in you sitting where you are sitting, doing what you are doing, feeling what you are feeling, right? This moment. Know that this moment is nothing but the embodiment of momentary thoughts, moments of mind, moments of consciousness. Think about that. Let that sink in a little. How often are we aware of this? Do we become aware of how this reality right now is nothing but the body of a thought, of a moment of consciousness? And if you apply this principle to those vows, then the vows are a type of body, a type of reality. The reality and the body that we carry with us, even if you are not overtly aware of it. This is really interesting. This is Kyoba Rinpoche emphasizing the power of taking those vows. So if it is a form, a type of form, right? You may have $10 in your pocket that you don't realize. But the $10 in your pocket is not dependent on you explicitly remembering, I have $10 in my pocket. Because it has substance. It can stay in your pocket. Now, of course, you could say, until I realize that I have that $10, I'm not going to be able to spend it. Or to make virtue by giving it away. But nonetheless, it's there. So this point, Kyoba Rinpoche is emphasizing, this is how wonderful these vows are. It doesn't require you to constantly remember, I have $10, 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 because its existence is not dependent on constant reminder that you have $10. Its existence is dependent on, at one point, you got the $10 and you put it in your pocket. So to obtain the vow and put it in your pocket, don't lose it. You don't lose it by forgetting. Well, you could, but you don't immediately lose it by forgetting it. You could lose it by forgetting it if you take your pants off, send it to the laundry, the guy sees the $10, takes it, all of that, sure. But simply forgetting that you have it, it's still very useful. It's there. So that's one side, one of the take-home lessons of why to see that these vows are imperceptible form, or to see that they are form, can be helpful. The other aspect is also emphasized in the commentaries that says, when Gilbert Rinpoche says that it is imperceptible form, or form, mainly the weight of this is the form part. The imperceptible is simply to say, well, yeah, you can't see it with the flesh eyes, but it's not like it's not a form. It's a type of form. And the other take-home lesson is, one of the basic definitions of form in kind of the Buddhist definitions, in the Abhidharma definition, is, remember the word impeded? It has the power to impede, so to block. So if it is there, it's blocking something else from being there. So that's one definition. Another definition, or another quality of form, is it is susceptible to breaking. So here, having emphasized the first point, is so special, is so beneficial. Even if you temporarily forget you have the $10 in your pocket, right? It's still there. Now, the other side is, but also be careful. Because it's a form, it's liable to be broken. Don't break it. Don't be careless. So this is essence. This is essence. Classifications. Now easy. Now the easy part. The vow, this vow takes 4 forms. Meaning the vow itself, that vow called individual liberation vow, it's not a specific vow. It's like an attitude, you can almost say. Like there's bodhisattva vow, it's an attitude. Then to support that attitude, there are precepts. There are trainings. So this one vow called individual liberation. What is the essence? We just talked about all of it. That's the essence. That's the vow, so to say. And then this vow takes on 4 forms, depending on context. Fully ordained, novice, layperson, and intermediate nun. 4. And then taking male and female body supports into consideration, then you come up with 7. This vow can exist in 7 situations or 7 contexts. So for a fully ordained male person, fully ordained female person, a novice, a male novice, a female novice, a female layperson, a male layperson, and this one specific to nuns called probationary nuns, or intermediate nuns, sometimes translated as that. What's the reason for that? It's a biological reason. So when somebody first becomes a probationary, when a woman first wants to become a nun, they first begin as a probationary nun because of a biological situation, which is that period is necessary to make sure that the woman is not pregnant. Because in the old times, you can't go to ultrasound to see. You don't have a, pregnancy test to easily determine. And if in fact the woman is pregnant, then when she gives birth to her child, she cannot bring the child into the monastery, into the nunnery. Neither can she be expected to abandon her child. So there is this probationary period. So until men can also bear children, there's no category of probationary monks. So 7. 6 more stable, laymen, laywomen, novice nun, novice monk, fully ordained nun, fully ordained monk. So these are the 4 types in 7 categories. So these are the differences. But it is also taught, so now especially speaking to our current audience, the 5 vows of the laymen and laywomen is said to be the foundation for all the others. For the probationary nun, for the novice monks and nuns, for the fully ordained nuns and monks. So that if we're able to guard the 5 in a very perfect way, then essentially, we already have the essence. The 5 lay vows, of course, are to be further kind of elaborated and supported by an understanding of the 10 non-virtues. The 10 non-virtues. From whom the vow is taken is the next of the 8 sections. The ones from whom the vow is taken need to be holders of the vow. So that's the most basic requirement. You cannot get something from someone who don't have it. So you need to get it from someone who has it. To be an assembled group of 10 or 5, this we're talking about monastic, part of the monastic ordination ceremony. So don't concern you guys. And to be of sound faculties. That one applies to all. Meaning you have to know what you're doing. You have to understand what you're doing so that it can be a firm branch on which to build your practice. And the person giving the vows also need to be of sound faculties. Otherwise, they don't know what they're giving you. You don't know what you're receiving from them, then it won't work. So in that sense, right, there's no accidentally getting the vows. Or accidentally, accidentally got married. No, it immediately disqualifies. You don't accidentally get the vows by just happening to walk into a vow giving ceremony. And then the next section, the ceremony of taking the vow. So here, this discussion here actually pertains to the monastic vow taking ceremony. Talk about the 10 presences to be present. So the 10 presences are the presence of the Buddha nowadays in the form of representations of the Buddha, statues, paintings. Presence of the Dharma in the form of Dharma texts. Good news to share. We have a donor who We have two donors actually, but first we have a donor who has stated their intention to sponsor the Buddha statue that I'm looking at for the Forest Hermitage. It's almost 5 feet, a little less than 5, seated. So we'll see. No actual steps are taken yet, but rejoicing in the offer to obtain that. Then, of course, then that needs to sit on a nice, foundation. And then it will be pretty awe-inspiring. So the presence of the Buddha have been in the form of this statue, as the conditions have come together for the forest monastery. The presence of the Dharma in the form of Dharma text. Another sponsor have already sent the check for the purchase of the Gangyo and the Dengyo. Gangyo is the translated words of the Buddha into from various languages, mostly Sanskrit, into Tibetan, and then Dengyo is the translation of the commentary works of the Indian masters. So together, sizable collection, about 200 plus volumes. And the donor have already sent the check. When I go to Nepal, I'm going to go finalize the purchase of the Gangyo and Dengyo. Then when the Gangyo and Dengyo comes, they have to be wrapped in the cloth. So then people who are around this area encouraged to come, and because the teachings on how wrapping the cloth is like protecting the Dharma and the merit that arises from that is a great merit. The donor especially said that, like, get all your people to come and help, wrap these Dengyo. So the second presence. Third, so second presence. Third presence, the presence of the Sangha. Here, specifically, the monastic Sangha. So we have two presences now. Then in time, the third presence will be in the forest. Then for all of those three presences to be there, we need infrastructure. So right now, we're working on infrastructure. Building. Of course, always, what your projected cost is always exceeds, or your actual cost always exceeds your projected cost. We have hit that point. I said, don't matter. Build what we can, then stop and wait. Put in what we can, stop, wait. Wait as in not just sit and wait, but create more causes and conditions, then next thing can go. Next thing can go. Then next thing can go. The presence of the Kempo, the presence of the Lopan, the presence of the person, the presence of the monastic articles. The Kempo and the Lopan are two positions that are required. The Kempo means the preceptor. This is different from how we mostly use Kempo today. Mostly Kempo today is the equivalent of what in the Gelugpa called geishas. They are like professors. Here in the monastic vow context, Kempo is referring to the preceptor, meaning the main person giving the vows. That has to be there. The Lopan, here, Lopan again, in different contexts, Lopan means different things. Lopan literally just means teacher. In this case, this Lopan has a specific role to play in the ordination ceremony. Kind of the person directing the ceremony. The presence of the person, so the person to be ordained. The presence of the monastic articles, the robes, the articles that is needed. The supplication, the proper asking. The absence of obstacles is a kind of presence. So it's kind of interesting. The absence of obstacles, is a type of presence, and the expression of the actions, and actually doing the ceremony. So these are the 10 presences. The 3 intentions. The 3 intentions, would apply to us. This 10 presences, not all of it applies. Um, especially like if you're taking only the 5 vows, you don't need the Kempo and the Lopan. That one. But it's good to have the presence of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Then taking the 5 lay vows, you don't need the preceptor and the teacher. That can be a single person, and that person can be anyone who has these vows, the 5 lay vows. Then, of course, needs to have you, the person. And then no need presence of monastic articles for taking the 5 lay vows. Then the proper supplication. Then the presence of the absence of obstacles, of course, needed. And then the actual ceremony would apply to the 5 lay vows. Then the 3 intentions are the firm intention to achieve nirvana. So the determination to be free. That has to be present. Otherwise, you are not taking these vows of not to kill, not to steal, not to commit sexual misconduct as individual liberation vow, Not to kill, well, because I don't like killing. Not to steal because I don't want to get caught. Not to commit sexual misconduct because I don't want to get, terrible diseases. Then they are not individual liberation vows. There's something else. Okay? Then the intention to guard the precepts without interruption. You need to have that intention. If you don't have that intention, then you have not really received the vow. If you're like, my friends are taking it, oh yeah, I'm going to go take it. Oh, I accidentally walk in, I'm embarrassed to walk back out, I'm just going to stay here. And the intention to take all the precepts, not leaving any out. And this one is especially relevant. I mean, with the 5, it's easy. Pretty straightforward, right? But with the 200 plus, and often we say, I want to know what the 200 plus is before I commit to it. Actually, interestingly, according to tradition, no, you should not know what the 200 plus is. I know it sounds kind of interesting or strange, but that's the tradition. No, you should not know what the 200 plus is, because you should be so convinced that of the faults of samsara, and you're determined to be free. And then when you're determined to be free, and you look at monastic sangha and you say, I want that kind of life. So I want it so much that the details don't matter. I want in. It has to be that kind of, I want in. Doesn't matter what it takes, I want in. Of course, on the realistic side, right? Once you're in, then you learn the 200 plus or however number, because there's novice and and you work with it. It's not saying that you come perfect at all, but you come to undergo a lifelong training. Whether lifelong is the next 10 years or the next 100 years, you have to be willing and determined for this lifelong training. So today we're going to stop here. Tomorrow we will have class. We're going day by day, depending on how crazy things get on my end. I leave Thursday afternoon. So tomorrow, yes, we will have class. So we will end with the supplication to Guru Rinpoche to remove obstacles. I don't know about you, but I'm going to say this prayer with, a hurricane coming up this direction, needing to take the plane. These days, more and more travel obstacles, missing one connection, a week later, you're still stuck in, Texas. Page 9. Guru Rinpoche, Buddha of the 3 times great bliss, source of all siddhis, wrathful subduer of maras, who removes all obstacles, grant your blessings, we pray. Through them may all obstacles, outer, inner, and secret, be quelled, and may all our aspirations be fulfilled. Changchu Semcho Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Nam Ge Gyurche Ge Ba Nyam Pa Me Pa Yang Go Ne Gong Du Be Shu. Excellent and precious bodhicitta, where it has not arisen, may it arise. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. So the Changju Semjo Rinpoche is the Tibetan for the excellent and precious bodhicitta. Good to memorize the Tibetan. Often very nice to chant that one in Tibetan. Some special blessing there, I feel. So try to memorize those 4 lines in Tibetan so that you're not lost, like suddenly people go, Changju Sem, what, where, how? Okay, tata everyone.